When the first ray of dawn breaks across the horizon, painting the vast ocean in hues of amber and gold, they say there is a moment, brief as a heartbeat, when you can glimpse Epple. Not with your eyes, perhaps, but with something deeper. Those who have felt the ancient spirit's presence speak of a sudden calm washing over turbulent waters, of impossible rescues from stormy seas, of shipwrecks mysteriously guided to safe harbors. For millennia, sailors have whispered prayers to this guardian of the deep, leaving offerings at shorelines across every continent. But who or what is Epple? Is it merely a myth born from humanity's need to make sense of the sea's unpredictable nature? Or does something truly divine dwell beneath those endless waves, something as old as the tides themselves? Join me on a journey into the legend, science, and mystery of Epple, the divine spirit of the sea. Origins of the legend. Long before humans built vessels to cross oceans, before they even had words for the vast waters that covered most of their world, the story of Epple was already ancient. The earliest recorded mention comes from clay tablets dating back to the Mesopotamian civilization, where fishermen carved symbols of a benevolent presence they believed guided their boats safely through unexplored waters. They called this entity Epple, the life-giver of the endless blue. In the coastal villages of ancient Greece, it was Poseidon, considered a gentler counterpart to the volatile Poseidon. While Poseidon wielded storms and earthquakes in displays of divine power, Poseidon was said to protect the small fishing boats that dared not venture far from shore, creating pockets of calm water during unexpected tempests. The Polynesian islanders, perhaps the world's most accomplished pre-modern seafarers, spoke reverently of Epple, a shape-shifting guardian who could appear as a magnificent whale, a school of bioluminescent fish, or even a strange glow beneath the water. Their intricate navigational chants often included invocations to Epple, asking for guidance across thousands of miles of open ocean. What's remarkable about these myths is not just their similarity across cultures that had no contact with each other but their consistency. In nearly every telling, Epple is portrayed not as a conqueror of the sea or its master, but as its spirit, the very embodiment of the ocean's dual nature of nurturing life and unleashing unstoppable power. The science behind the myth. Oceanographers might scoff at the idea of a divine sea spirit, yet there are phenomena in our oceans that continue to defy easy explanation. Consider the mysterious rogue waves, massive walls of water that appear suddenly in otherwise calm seas, often described by survivors as appearing out of nowhere. For centuries, these were dismissed as sailors' tall tales until scientific instruments finally recorded one in 1995 off the coast of Norway. A 26-meter-high wall of water materialized without warning, striking the oil platform Dropner, or the peculiar calm spots that sometimes form in the midst of violent storms, areas where the water inexplicably stills, creating temporary havens. Meteorologists call these microclimate anomalies, but they struggle to explain why they form exactly when and where desperate sailors need them most. Then there are the countless accounts of dolphins guiding struggling swimmers to shore or circling ships in distress, behavior that marine biologists acknowledge but cannot fully explain. Some indigenous cultures believed these animals were messengers or manifestations of Epple acting on the spirit's compassionate impulses. Perhaps most intriguing are the persistent reports of bioluminescent phenomena that don't match known patterns of marine life. Strange, organized lights moving purposefully beneath the surface, sometimes forming shapes or appearing to respond intelligently to human observers. Science tells us these must be colonies of bioluminescent organisms, but what explains their seemingly deliberate movements? While these mysteries don't prove the existence of a sea deity, they remind us that the ocean, covering 71% of our planet, remains largely unexplored. We've mapped more of the moon's surface than our own ocean floors. In that vast unknown, who can say with certainty what might exist? Epple across cultures. As human civilizations spread across continents, the legend of Epple evolved in fascinating ways, adapting to different cultural contexts while maintaining its core identity. In Japan, Epple became Ryujin, the dragon god of the sea's depths who controlled the tides with jewels of moon and sun. Fishermen would leave offerings at small shrines along the coast, asking for safe passage and abundant catches. Norse legends spoke of Aegipor, a being neither god nor giant but something older, who would sometimes calm Aegir's brewing storms when ships carried the innocent or brave. Viking sagas tell of lost vessels suddenly finding their way through impenetrable fog when a peculiar light appeared beneath their keels. Along the western coast of Africa, the Yoruba people told stories of Ayapo, a spirit who taught humans how to build their first canoes and revealed the secret paths of fish migration. To this day, some traditional fishing communities perform rituals at daybreak, sending prayers to Ayapo before setting out. In South America, the Mapuche people of Chile and Argentina speak of Epunamu, a benevolent force who balances the destructive power of Kai Kai Filu, the evil serpent spirit who causes floods and tsunamis. When earthquakes threaten coastal communities with massive waves, it is Epunamu who is said to diminish their force. Among the Inuit of the Arctic, Ipoa is the consciousness of the sea itself, neither male nor female but containing aspects of both, who ensures the ice forms properly in winter and breaks at the right time in spring, maintaining the delicate balance of their harsh environment. What's remarkable is how these diverse interpretations share common threads. Epel is rarely worshipped as a god demanding sacrifice, but rather honored as an ancient ally of humanity, a being that recognizes our fundamental connection to the sea and all its life. The Great Rescues. Throughout maritime history, there are accounts of inexplicable rescues and survival stories so unlikely that even the most rational observers were left searching for explanations beyond normal chance. Consider the case of the USS Indianapolis in 1945. After being torpedoed by a Japanese submarine, nearly 900 men were cast into the Philippine Sea. As sharks began attacking the survivors and hope dwindled, numerous sailors later reported seeing strange patterns of light beneath the water that seemed to ward off the predators. Some swore these lights guided rescue planes to their location after 4 horrific days adrift. Or the more recent case from 2018, when Thai fisherman Somsak Nat Hip found himself thrown overboard during a sudden storm, 20 miles from shore with no flotation device. As night fell and exhaustion set in, Somsak described being suddenly surrounded by a circle of blue light that kept him mysteriously buoyant. When dawn came, he found himself pushed by currents to a small island despite the fact that all known currents in the area flow away from land. The annals of maritime history overflow with such accounts. Single survivors of shipwrecks carried by impossible currents to safety, lost vessels finding harbor in uncharted coves during the worst hurricanes, drowning children returned to shore by something large that witnesses couldn't identify. Scientists offer rational explanations for each case. Lucky convergence of factors, misperceptions born from trauma and fear, and the mind's tendency to create meaning from random events. Yet for those who lived through these experiences, the feeling of an intelligent, compassionate presence remains unshakable. As one survivor from the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami put it, "I don't know if it was Epel or Allah or my own will to live, but something in that water wanted me to survive when everything else wanted me to die." The environmental guardian. In recent decades, as humanity's relationship with the ocean has grown increasingly exploitative, the legend of Epel has taken on new dimensions and urgency. Environmental activists working to protect marine ecosystems have sometimes adopted Epel as a symbol of the ocean's vulnerable consciousness, a representation of what we stand to lose. Indigenous communities fighting against offshore drilling and overfishing invoke the ancient guardian's name in their legal battles, connecting modern conservation with traditional spiritual values. Some even speak of Epel in a literal sense as the collective consciousness of marine life, a kind of emergent sentience born from the interconnected web of oceanic ecosystems. When whales beach themselves en masse, when coral reefs bleach in warming waters, when plastic gyres grow to the size of countries, they ask, is this Epel in distress? Is the spirit of the sea trying to communicate something vital about its well-being, and by extension our own? This modern interpretation frames Epel not just as a protector of humans who venture upon the water but as a protector of the water itself, and all the countless forms of life it sustains, including our own species that evolved from it eons ago. There's a poetic symmetry here. The ancient sailors who first conceived of Epel did so partly out of fear of the sea's awesome power. Today, it is the sea that has reason to fear humanity's collective power. Perhaps Eppel's role has evolved accordingly. Personal encounters. Beyond historical accounts and cultural myths, there are the personal stories. Quiet moments of connection between individuals and something they couldn't explain but felt deeply. Marine biologist Dr. Sylvia Earle, who has spent more time exploring the ocean depths than almost any other human, once described an experience while diving alone near a seamount in the Pacific. Something changed in the water around me, a sense of being observed, but not in a threatening way. Then the current, which had been fighting me the entire dive, suddenly shifted, creating what felt like a protective bubble. That's when they appeared, a pod of sperm whales, circling me with a curiosity and gentleness that defied explanation. The matriarch came so close I could see my reflection in her eye. There was an intelligence there, yes, but something more, something ancient and vast. I've never used this term in my scientific papers, but in my personal journals, I called it a brush with Eppel. Fisherman Miguel Santana from Portugal tells a different kind of story. After his boat capsized in a storm, he found himself clinging to floating debris as night fell. I was certain I would die. Then the phosphorescence began, not the usual kind we sometimes see, but organized, moving with purpose around me. It formed a kind of path in the direction I least wanted to go, away from where I thought land was. With no better option, I followed it, swimming for hours alongside this glowing trail. When dawn broke, I saw it had led me directly to a small island I hadn't known existed. The locals there told me it was Eppel's work, that the spirit had been guiding lost sailors this way for generations. These deeply personal encounters rarely make headlines or scientific journals. They're shared quietly, often reluctantly, by people who know how they sound to skeptical ears. Yet they persist across cultures and centuries, suggesting a shared human experience that transcends both time and geography. Today, Eppel lives on not just in traditional beliefs and unexplained maritime events, but also in art, literature, music, and popular culture, evolving with each new generation that feels drawn to the mystery of the sea. Award-winning Jamaican author Marlon James recently published a novel titled Eppel's Children, reimagining the ancient spirit as a force awakening in Caribbean waters in response to climate change. The book became an unexpected bestseller, touching something in the cultural zeitgeist. Grammy-nominated composer Kaya Sariaho's orchestral piece Oceanic Consciousness was explicitly inspired by the Eppel legends, using unusual harmonic structures to evoke the sensation of communication beyond human language. In cinema, acclaimed director Guillermo del Toro has spoken of developing a project exploring the Eppel mythology, describing it as neither a monster movie nor a fantasy epic, but something more profound, a conversation between humanity and the oldest consciousness on our planet. Even in gaming and virtual reality, Eppel has found expression. The indie game Depths of Eppel takes players on a journey through the ocean's various zones, encountering manifestations of the sea spirit that change depending on the player's choices regarding ocean environments they encounter. What's fascinating about these modern interpretations is how they've moved beyond simple deity worship or supernatural rescue narratives. They engage with deeper questions. What would it mean if the ocean itself had a form of consciousness? How might such an ancient awareness perceive humanity's brief but impactful presence on this planet? What responsibilities would we bear if we truly understood our relationship to the waters that gave birth to all life on Earth? The living legend. Whether Eppel exists as a tangible entity, a metaphorical representation of the ocean's importance, or simply a beautiful human story that has endured across millennia, its legend serves a vital purpose in our relationship with the sea. In a world increasingly dominated by technology and artificial environments, Eppel reminds us of something essential. We are water beings. Our bodies are mostly water. Our distant ancestors emerged from the sea. Every human life begins in a saline environment remarkably similar to the ancient oceans. When we stand at the shoreline feeling inexplicably drawn to the endless horizon, perhaps what we're experiencing is a form of recognition, cellular memory of our oldest home. The legend of Eppel offers something our technological civilization often lacks: a sense of reverence for natural forces we neither created nor fully control. It suggests that the proper relationship between humans and the ocean is not one of conquest or exploitation but of respect, reciprocity, and wonder. Scientists studying the surprising intelligence of marine mammals, the complex communication networks of coral reefs, or the fascinating collective behaviors of fish schools sometimes describe having their preconceptions challenged, finding more consciousness in the ocean than they expected to discover. Perhaps this is why the Epel story refuses to fade, even in our age of satellite navigation and weather radar. It speaks to something we sense but cannot yet prove, that the boundary between living and non-living systems may be more porous than we've believed, that consciousness might exist in forms and scales we're only beginning to comprehend, and that the vast waters covering most of our world may not be merely the backdrop for life but, in some sense, alive themselves. As our journey with Epel draws to a close, I invite you to pause the next time you find yourself near any body of water, be it a mighty ocean, flowing river, tranquil lake, or humble stream. Take a moment to consider not just what you can see on the surface but the ancient mystery flowing beneath. For regardless of whether you believe in the literal existence of a divine sea spirit, the essence of Epel exists wherever humans connect deeply with water. It lives in the wonder of a child discovering tide pools for the first time. It lives in the respect of experienced sailors who never take the sea's power for granted. It lives in the dedication of marine conservationists fighting to protect ocean ecosystems. And perhaps, just perhaps, in those rare, perfect moments when the boundary between yourself and the water seems to momentarily dissolve, when you feel not just physically but spiritually connected to the vast blue heart of our planet. Perhaps then you too have encountered Epel. The divine spirit of the sea doesn't demand worship or sacrifice. It asks only for recognition of a simple truth. We are not separate from the waters of this world but part of them. In protecting them we protect ourselves. In honoring them we honor our own origins. And in listening closely to their rhythms and mysteries, we might yet hear whispers of the oldest consciousness on Earth, one that was flowing, nurturing life, and shaping this planet billions of years before our species took its first steps, and one that will likely continue long after our brief but consequential chapter in Earth's story comes to a close. This has been Epel, the divine spirit of the sea. If you enjoyed this journey, please consider supporting ocean conservation organizations working to protect the real magic of our world's waters. Like, subscribe, and share to help others discover the ancient legend of Epel. Until next time, may the spirit of the sea guide you safely on your journey.